Hello and welcome to Byjus Exam Prep IAS. I welcome you all to the Hindu analysis for today on a day where we have a lot of very important news stories to analyze. But before we do that, just a reminder, tonight's explained session that will go live at 8 p.m. on our YouTube channel will be on the legacy of Mikhail Gorbachev, the tall USSR leader that passed away this week. The legacy that he has left behind will be discussed. Also, as you know, we are now on Telegram as well. If you have still not joined the Telegram channel, you can do that by either scanning this code or using the link given in the description of the video. You can get all the latest current affairs updates for the UPSC examination if you're a part of this Telegram channel. Now let's begin with the first news of the day. A news that is not just big for India, but also making news around the entire world. That is the passing away of Queen Elizabeth II, the longest reigning monarch of UK. She passed away yesterday at an age of 96 years after ruling over England for 70 years. That is the longest ever rule for any monarch in the British history. Now, the newspaper today and the news websites around the world are actually filled up with her legacy, with what she achieved during her tenure, what transpired during her reign in England, how the world has changed, so on and so forth. For us, rather than looking into what changed in England during her tenure, it is more pertinent to look at what exactly changes around the world. What is the relation of the British monarch with the Commonwealth nations around the world, and that is what we will be discussing in more detail. As I said, Queen Elizabeth II passed away after being at the post of the monarch for 70 years, and now she'll be followed by her son. So, England will now have a king called King Charles III, who will now take over the official royal duties from his mother. Queen Elizabeth II came to the throne in 1952 after the death of her father George VI. Now, as you know, there is one British royal family, so only the original members of the royal family will come to the throne, meaning that after Queen Elizabeth, it is her son that will come to power. If the son of the queen passes away, then his wife will not come to the power because wife is from an outside family. She has entered this family through marriage. Son's son or son's daughter, if the son is there, then the preference will be given to the son, the eldest son, and if there is no son, then the preference will be given to the daughter. But only the original members of the family who have been born in that family will be allowed to actually get to the throne, and not people who have entered the family through marriage. That is why the husband of Queen Elizabeth was never the King of England, he was just a prince. Similarly, after the passing away of the Queen, it is her son that will come to the throne. After him also, the original members of the royal family only will come to the throne. Now, during her tenure of 70 years, she saw so many world leaders come and go. England itself, in fact, saw 15 prime ministers during her tenure. In her last days, she in fact appointed Liz Truss as the new Prime Minister of UK, becoming the third female to be at that post. Not just this, many Commonwealth nations around the world, including Australia, Canada, etc., still give the official position of their monarch to the British Queen only. So for them also, for these nations who were a part of Commonwealth earlier, they also are in the official state of mourning because their queen has also passed away. Queen Elizabeth II, as you can understand, the second of her name, Queen Elizabeth I was at the throne for 44 years during the 16th century and is widely regarded as the person who presided over the golden age of England, when English economy grew, when its influence around the world grew, when most parts of the world were under the British Empire. Queen Elizabeth I was known for the expansion of the British power throughout the world. Right now, as you know, the British royal family is just a constitutional monarchy, meaning that they don't have unlimited powers. The powers of the royal family are restricted by the constitution. Whatever is written in the constitution, only that will be their power. She also had a connection with India. Queen Elizabeth II, in fact, visited India thrice on state visits: 1961, 1983, and 1997. 1997 was when India completed a golden anniversary of its independence, that is 50 years. She was also the guest of honor at India's Republic Day parade on the invitation of Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Now, as I said, while this is a big news for the entire world, To us, from the examination point of view, we are more focused on what changes would now happen after the passing away of Queen Elizabeth II. If you look at the changes that will happen in the lives of the British citizens specifically, nothing drastically will change that will impact the day to day life. However, there are some official changes that will take place. For instance, the first major change is that the British national anthem right now says God save the Queen, which will now change to God save the King, because as we discussed now, England has a king, King Charles III. Similarly, the coins and the banknotes of England have the photo of the monarch, so that also has to be changed. Now, the monarch's image on the British currency will have to be of King Charles III. The old notes that have the Queen Elizabeth II photo will continue. It's not like demonetization that overnight everything is going out of circulation. They will still remain in circulation and they will be gradually replaced with those that have the photo of the current monarch. Then the royal cipher, that is a monogram used by the monarch, currently features a Queen's stamp. That will also have to change to the stamp of the next monarch. Then legal changes will also have to be made. Senior lawyers will become the King's Counsel rather than being called the Queen's Counsel as they are called now. So mostly it's about the titles that will be changing on paper, but nothing majorly will change on ground in the politics of Britain or politics of the entire world. This is a family tree of the British Empire. If you can actually see, the people who are in yellow are in line with the throne. So as I said, the people who are born in that family are the ones who go to the throne. The ones who they marry from outside the family, they don't have any right to go to the throne. So after Queen Elizabeth II, the eldest of them is Prince Charles, who is now King Charles III. As I said earlier, there are multiple nations around the world that still consider the British monarch as their official monarch as well. This even includes big nations such as Australia, Jamaica, New Zealand, Canada as well. On the other hand, over the years, many nations have officially ended this system. India ended it right at the time of our constitution came into being. Then Barbados in 2021, very recently, decided that we don't want to continue with British Queen or King as a monarch. So these changes are mostly on paper. Even with nations such as Australia, Canada, etc., the Queen or the British monarch doesn't have any real powers. It's more of a ceremonial head as such. The next article from the newspaper that is important for us is the idea of having a global pandemic treaty. It is written by Mr. Amar Patnaik, who is a member of the Rajya Sabha from the state of Odisha. He says that the world must learn its lessons from what has happened in the past couple of years. First, we had the COVID-19 pandemic, where close to 2 crore people died throughout the world and 12 crore people were pushed into extreme poverty. Even today, although developed nations, many developing nations have seen a considerable coverage of the vaccination, in least developed nations, the poor nations, still many people have still not got their hands on the COVID-19 vaccine. While COVID-19 still remains a part of our lives, now WHO has also declared monkeypox as a public health emergency of international concern. The way that the human life has evolved, the way that our interaction with the nature, with animals has constantly been increasing, it should not be a surprise that new and new diseases are emerging every single year. This is why everyone believes that this was not the last pandemic. We may have pandemics in the future as well. In order to get a hang of that, in order to ensure that we are well prepared for all those situations, as per the author, the world must come together and have a global pandemic treaty. Because if there is one thing that has been proven by COVID-19 pandemic, it is that it is not within the power of any one single nation. Be it the most powerful nation or be it the richest nations, even they need support of other nations if the entire world has to be safe. Also, when you have a pandemic, just making one country safe will not really help anyone because these diseases spread from one nation to the other in the era of the globalized world. That is why the entire world has to come together. The author says that the pharma companies such as Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna made so much money during the COVID-19 pandemic by selling the vaccine at a very, very high price. By many estimates, these people made $1,000 per second in profits. It made 9 new billionaires across the world just because the COVID-19 vaccine was supplied to people throughout the world. Even then, only 3% of the people in the low income nations by March 2022 actually got vaccinated with at least one dose. In high income nations, the number is over 60%. So there is such a wide disparity just based on the income levels of the two nations. The world had set a target that by mid 2022, at least 70% of the world's population would be vaccinated. But obviously, that has not been achieved. While the developed world, the high income nations are close to this target, in the low income nations, the poor nations, they are far, far away from their target. Many of them are still in the single figures only. The main reason is that they cannot afford to buy these vaccines or vaccinations are being sold at such a high price by all these companies. The world leaders have realized this and come together to start multiple initiatives to resolve this issue as well, and we'll come to that in just a bit. The developed nations made a lot of promises that we will be coming together to supply vaccines to the smaller nations, to the lesser powerful nations, or the poorer nations, but in reality, it has still not happened. In fact, the one nation that is leading the world in actually helping the developing nations and the least developed nations is India. The Indian government has played a stellar role in rolling out the COVID 19 vaccine in such a way that as many people around the world can actually get access to it. India produces 60% of the world's vaccines and accounts for 60 to 80% of UN's annual vaccine procurement. We have also been supplying vaccine to close to 100 nations around the world under our program of Vaccine Maitri. Now, the UN comes in the picture as the UN has had multiple programs under which they are procuring vaccines at a subsidized price from nations around the world, including India, and then they're supplying it to the smaller nations and to the lesser developed nations who can't afford these vaccines. Yes, there was a short time period when the cases in India were at their peak during the second wave. That was the only time when India did not supply any vaccine to any countries because they were needed in India. But apart from that, India has fulfilled all its promises of supplying the vaccines either at a very, very low cost or as a form of grant without taking any money in return. We have supplied vaccines to many nations around the world under the COVAX program, under the aegis of Gavi. Gavi is Global Alliance of Vaccinations. And India has emerged as a world leader to ensure that even those who can't afford these vaccines get their hands on it. So much so that India, along with South Africa, raised this request at the WTO that there should not be any intellectual property rights or patents on COVID 19 vaccines, drugs, etc. As expected, the developed nations did not agree to that because developed nations were more concerned with the profits that their companies should make. India, on the other hand, was very openly saying that no one should make any profit out of the COVID 19 vaccine and it should be allowed to be given in the hands of people irrespective of their economic status. This is where a global pandemic treaty, if it would have been in place, would have improved the situation considerably. And India, being the world leader in such situations, as per the author, can take the lead in this aspect to ensure that by the time that we have the next pandemic kind of situation, we are ready to fight against it. This is a news from July 2022. As you can see the numbers, India supplied 23.5 crore supplies of COVID vaccine to 98 nations. Let me share with you an even more updated data. So this is a long list of over 100 nations that you can find on the government website. Because I had to take a screenshot, so I've only taken the screenshot of the first three. This is a long table. There are three columns. Vaccines given by India in the form of grant, means for which India is not asking for any money. Then second, we have vaccine that we have sold. This is commercial vaccine sold at their price. And third, the vaccine that we have given to COVAX. COVAX is an international program to take vaccine from nations and distribute it to the smaller nations. Under COVAX vaccine, India supplies these vaccines at a very, very low cost, at a very subsidized price. So we have been giving vaccines to nations around the world, including our neighborhoods such as Nepal, Bangladesh, Myanmar, so on and so forth. Now the COVAX initiative that we are hearing about time and time again is actually led by the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations, Gavi, that is Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunization, and the WHO. The aim is very, very simple: to ensure that enough COVID-19 vaccines are procured and are equally distributed to every country throughout the world, irrespective of their wealth status. They ensure that there are enough doses for at least 20% of the country's population, that they actively manage and ensure that the supply of the vaccines is stable. They are delivered as soon as they are made available. They want to end the pandemic as soon as possible and then help rebuild the economies. India, as we have seen, is playing a stellar role in all of these initiatives. The next article that we have here is in the form of an interview from two people who have been working in the field of education for a long time. It's on a question that has been asked multiple times in our society as a part of a debate. Should the mother tongue be the medium of instruction, or should English be the medium of instruction in schools, especially at the lower classes level? There are a lot of views about it. Majorly, everyone in India believes that mother tongue should be the way to go, not just the common people. In fact, the National Education Policy of 2020 also says that home language, mother tongue, the local language, whenever possible, should be the medium of instruction until grade 5, but preferably till grade 8 as well. Now, the one point of contention here is that yes, everyone accepts that if you teach the child in their mother tongue, it allows even the parents, it allows the people to be around them to help the child. If the child is at home and he or she needs certain help, then the parent, who might only know the mother tongue or the regional language, can also contribute to his or her studies. But when you make English the medium of instruction, the problem increases. Let me tell you how. Let's assume that I, as a student, am not good at English. I don't understand how it works. Now, the problem is because everything is being taught to me in English. Social science is being taught to me in English. Science is taught to me in English. Even maths is taught to me in English. That means just because I don't know the English language properly, I will be bad at almost every subject. That is where the issue starts. Because if you have English as a medium of instruction, then first you have to master English, only then you can understand other subjects. This is where the issue has become very big. Rather than that, English should just be taken as a subject. As long as you are taking English as a subject, that is absolutely fine. Even if the person is weak in English, he or she can at least catch up in the other subjects through his or her own mother tongue. But if you make English the medium of instruction for every other subject, that means if the child can't master English, he or she will never be able to master anything else. That is the entire problem, and that is why most educationists believe that teaching in mother tongue should be the way to go forward. However, there is one more aspect to this debate. Let's assume you, me, who are debating this issue, or educationists who are teaching, they believe that yes, mother tongue should be the way to go. But would you be able to convince the common people in India? If a common man right now is trying to get admission for his or her child in a school, would they prefer an English medium school, or would they prefer a local medium school or a local language school? In most cases, they will prefer English medium school. Why? Because there is a perception, and I won't say this is false because this is true. There is a perception that if you are good in English, then the chances of you succeeding later on in your life professionally increase. The chances of you opting for various fields also increase. The chances of you opting for those kind of subjects where books are only available in English at the higher education level, in that case also your chances will increase only if you go to an English medium school. So the point of the argument is the government cannot force any parent to actually send their children to an English medium school or a Hindi medium or any other language medium school. The government first have to give equal number of opportunities to those people who are reading from their own language background. If a person is, let's say, in a Tamil medium school or a Malayalam medium school or a Hindi medium school, as long as they also have equal opportunities in the professional career, this is when the people's mindset will change. Till that happens, you cannot expect the parents to prefer regional language schools over the English medium, because for them, their priority is to have a bright future for their kid, and according to them, it will only happen if they send their children to the English medium schools. This is what has happened in Tamil Nadu also recently, which has become a part of the debate. Now, Tamil Nadu is one of those states in India that have been extremely proud of their linguistic heritage. In fact, most of the anti-Hindi agitations that you see in India have originated in Tamil Nadu only, where the politicians, the governments have all believed that it is their local language that should be given priority over any other language coming in from outside the state. However, even in Tamil Nadu recently, the Tamil Nadu government has decided that most of the state government schools will be teaching in English medium rather than Tamil medium. So even when states such as Tamil Nadu go ahead on this path, this raises a cause of concern that what will happen in the other states, and would this idea of the national education policy be implemented? One other thing that the national education policy talks about is, even if the children get introduced to English medium education after class 8, and even if they commit certain mistakes, they should not be judged on that. That is, the outcomes are not important, the inputs are more important. And you might not be aware of this, many big schools have actually made it a point that now when a child is writing English, and if the child is writing incorrect spelling of a certain word, many schools don't say it is a mistake, because they allow the child to write a spelling from their own mind using their own brain, and later on they try to correct that. So there are some changes that are happening, but again, in the long run, if you want these changes to be introduced, you would have to ensure that there are good opportunities for people who are reading from non-English medium schools as well. Now, the government of India and the government of many states across the country have been trying to promote regional languages since our independence. Let me give you some examples. The first Education Commission, as you know, was set up in 1968, called the Kothari Commission, which introduced a three-language formula for primary education. Three-language formula was the local language, English language, and a third language. That was a three-language formula, so that in a country such as India, which has so much linguistic diversity, we have people learning each other's languages and culture as well. We also have the Commission for Scientific and Technical Technology, that is providing the publication grants for publishing university level books in the regional languages, which is extremely important, because many people complain that good books, especially at the higher education level, are only available in English language and not in the regional languages. Then we even have the Central Institute of Indian Languages, set up in 1969 under the control of the Ministry of Education, to coordinate the development of Indian languages and ensure that there are enough scientific studies being conducted for their preservation as well. The UGC also promotes the regional languages in their higher education courses and supports 9 central universities under the scheme Establishment of Center for Endangered Languages in Central Universities. If you want a state level example, in Kerala state government, we have the Namath Basai initiative, under which the government of Kerala has been trying to educate children from the tribal areas by adopting their vernacular languages as medium of instruction, so not discriminating against them if they don't know other languages in the country. The next article that we have is again about a landmark decision by the government of India. The Prime Minister yesterday, as you saw, inaugurated the 2-kilometer stretch from India Gate to Rashtrapati Bhavan, which was till yesterday called the Rajpath. Now it will be called as the Kartavya Path. The Prime Minister also unveiled the statue of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose under the canopy at India Gate, where earlier, when the British rule was in India, we had a statue of King George V. The Prime Minister made a big speech about the contribution of Subhash Chandra Bose to India's freedom struggle, and he also lamented the fact that his contribution has been overlooked since independence, but now the government is looking to revive all the contributions of people who have played a stellar role in India's independence, including Subhash Chandra Bose. Today, Rajpath ceases to exist, and now we have the Kartavya Path. This, as per the Prime Minister, is a step forward in the government's initiative to erase the symbols of slavery and colonialism and go ahead and adopt a new Indian identity itself. Now, as you would have seen in the photos and on videos as well, when the 26th Jan parade takes place, this is where the parade actually happens. This entire stretch is actually called the Rajpath. This is a straight road that connects India Gate to the Rashtrapati Bhavan. This has now been renamed to what you call as the Kartavya Path. Now, this was actually at the British time called the King's Way when the British were here. This 3-kilometer stretch was built by two people, Edwin Lutyens, and Herbert Baker. These were in fact the two architects that designed the area of New Delhi. Today also, most of the diplomatic houses, most of the houses of the ministers, government buildings in Delhi are in that area of New Delhi. That is why it is also called the Lutyens Delhi. So Lutyens Delhi came from this person's name. That was the Edward Lutyens, the main architect of that particular area. As you know, it was in 1911 that the capital of British India was shifted from Calcutta to Delhi, and the house, that is the Rashtrapati Bhavan today, was constructed for the Viceroy to live. Lutyens was the one who actually conceptualized the entire thing and centered it on a ceremonial axis. In the middle would be the Rashtrapati Bhavan. This was George King V, who was the Emperor of India at that time, who came and inaugurated this. He visited India during the Delhi Darbar of 1911 and officially took the decision of moving the capital from Calcutta to Delhi. The name Kingsway was actually put in the honor of King Edward VII, who was the father of George V, who came to India to inaugurate this new capital of Delhi. This redeveloped pathway is a part of the larger Central Vista redevelopment project that the government had begun in 2021 that includes rebuilding and refurbishing of a lot of government buildings, including building a new Parliament of India as well. This is that particular area. If you are in Delhi or if you do watch the 26th Jan parade, I'm sure all of you would be very, very familiar with this. The next article that we have here is on the concept of EWS quota, that is the economically weaker section quota. A quota that has been in debate ever since it was introduced and made part of the country under the 103rd Constitutional Amendment Act. As you know, this provides 10% quota to economically weaker section of the society in government jobs, educational institutions as well. Now, the reason why we are discussing this is because a constitution bench in the Supreme Court, led by the Chief Justice of India, is finalizing whether this amendment is against the basic structure of the constitution or not. The bench has decided that we will hear arguments on three important points. These are the 3 points one by one. These three were suggested by the Attorney General of India to the Supreme Court, and the judges agreed to it. Point number one, the court will examine whether the amendment, that is the 103rd Amendment, breaches the basic structure of the Constitution by permitting the states to make special provisions such as reservation based on economic criteria. Second, it will examine whether it violates the basic structure by allowing the states to make special provisions in relation to admission to private unaided institutions as well. And third, whether basic structure is violated by excluding OBC, SC, ST community from the EWS quota. The court has said that now the lawyers from both the sides, when they make arguments from 13th of September, should make arguments only on these three questions, and as per the Supreme Court, they will be deciding the matter on these three questions as well. Now, as you know, the EWS quota has been a part of debate ever since it was introduced. Interestingly, Modi government was not the first government to try and introduce this kind of a quota. If you remember, it was actually the PV Narasimha Rao government that had actually first introduced this quota of 10% for EWS category. But the problem was Supreme Court struck it down, saying that the constitution does not allow this. So PV Narasimha Rao government did not make any constitutional amendment. And if you look at Article 15 and Article 16, it only allows reservation on the basis of education and social backwardness and not economic backwardness. So when Modi government introduced it, they first amended the constitution. They wrote down that quota can be given on the basis of economic backwardness as well, and then they implemented it. That is why it was upheld at that point of time. But even then, there have been multiple debates about how the government exactly has decided the criteria for this, what is the logic behind it, are there studies conducted it or not. These are the criteria, as you know, for anyone who wants to avail the EWS category quota. They should have income of less than 8 lakhs per year. This is also something which has been debated very, very widely. Supreme Court has asked the government of India time and time again, how did you calculate this 8 lakh level? There is no concrete answer given by the government so far because there is no specific calculation for this. Apart from that, if you have a house, area in the municipality, agricultural land, etc., up to a certain limit, then you cannot avail the EWS category quota. Also, The EWS quota was actually not random. It was based on recommendation of a commission headed by retired Major General S.R. Sinho. This committee was formed by the Congress government actually in 2005, and they gave the report in July 2010. Though the Congress government did not do anything about that, it was the BJP government that implemented the quota on the basis of this committee's recommendation and introduced the 103rd Amendment Act. Supreme Court has been asking questions on the EWS quota. For example, whether or not it will reduce the general category seats. Also, is the income limit arbitrary? As I said, the government has still not given any explanation of how did they calculate 8 lakh, why not 7, why not 10, etc. For example, when SR Sinho committee gave the report, they did not say anything about 8 lakh. The number that they gave was that the income until which we allow income tax exemption. So income until which you don't have to pay income tax, that should be the limit. So if that has to be followed, then the limit should be 5 lakh. But government randomly has decided it to be 8 lakh. Then metropolitan area, meaning that as per many people, owning of land should be in different categories. Whether you own some land in metro area or metropolitan area, there should be different criteria for that. But so far that has not happened. There is only one criteria of how much land you own. Where you own this land does not really matter. This is why this question of EWS quota has still not been decided completely by the Supreme Court. These were the important articles in the Hindu newspaper today. Now a couple of practice questions. Number 1. Colonial legacy lies in colonial era laws as well and not just in colonial era infrastructure. Elaborate. Second, assess the role played by India in ensuring a worldwide availability of the COVID-19 vaccine at affordable prices. Both these questions have to be answered within 250 words each. You can click on the link given in the description of the video to go to the student portal. Write your answers there, get them checked by each other, give each other feedback and learn from each other's mistakes as well. Thank you so much for watching the video. Have a good day ahead.